Come in. We've been expecting you.
I woke up to the sound of children laughing inside the vent above my bed. The problem was, I was staying on the 12th floor of a hotel that had long since closed off its top 2 levels. The hotel itself had that faded kind of grandeur. Gleaming marble in the lobby, staff in crisp uniforms. But once you got upstairs, the hallways felt different, too quiet.
I checked in late, tired from a long drive, and barely noticed how the lights in the hall flickered weakly, as if the bulbs were older than the building itself. My keycard was for room 412, down at the very end of a long, carpeted corridor that smelled faintly sour, like damp wallpaper and something chemical.
The room was forgettable. Standard bed, desk, a heavy curtain that blocked out the yellow street lamps below. Nothing stood out except for the vent above the bed, a wide metal grate that hummed faintly with air. I remember thinking it was odd the hotel didn't centralize it somewhere else, but I went to sleep quickly. That's when I first heard it. Faint giggles in the dark, like kids whispering at a sleepover, stifling laughs. I sat up immediately. The vent was directly over me, and the sound was inside it. At first I thought I imagined it, just the white noise twisting in my half-dreaming brain. But when the voices rose, soft and playful, I froze. I was alone. The floor was quiet, and from what I'd been told at the desk, the hotel's top 2 floors above me had been closed for years due to renovations. I listened hard. The air carried their laughter clearly, high-pitched, fast. It wasn't the echo of guests through the walls. It came from inside the ducts. After several minutes, the noise faded, and I convinced myself it was just the sound of pipes clanging strangely. I forced myself back to bed. The next night was worse. I woke at 2:14 a.m. to the same sound, except this time the laughter wasn't playful. It was loud, shrill, almost mocking. One child's voice echoed words, though the duct muffled them, "Come play." Then followed a wave of hushed giggles. I sat up again, staring at the vent. The room felt unnaturally cold, my breath fogging faintly. Goosebumps prickled across my arms. I wanted to leave, but curiosity rooted me to the bed. The hotel halls outside had been empty when I last looked, and I wasn't sure I wanted to find out if they still were. The voices shifted higher, scurrying through the ductwork like something crawling. A sudden knock rattled the metal grate above me. I jumped to my feet and stumbled back against the desk, my heart blaring in my chest. In a panic, I called the front desk and told them there were people, or children, inside the vents. A long silence followed before the clerk answered quietly, "Sir, you're in 412, aren't you?" Confused and angry, I said yes. They muttered something I couldn't make out, then finally told me they'd send security up. No one ever came. After an hour of sitting frozen in the desk chair, staring at that vent, the laughter died away. The following morning, I asked at the desk again. This time, a different employee leaned in and whispered, "You shouldn't have been put in that room. Guests have complained for years. Children's voices, running, sometimes screams. But there hasn't been anyone in those floors above you for at least 3 decades." I pressed them for answers, but they shook their head, clearly frightened themselves. That night, I made arrangements to check out the next morning. Yet, of course, I still had to get through one last night in room 412. For hours, everything was silent. Just when I started to relax at around 3 a.m., I felt a cold breeze sweep the room. Not from the window, but directly from the vent. I froze as a whisper drifted down. "He's still here." Then came a sound that doesn't belong to any child. Slow, deliberate breathing just above my bed. My lamp flickered once, twice, then went dark. In that pitch-black silence, the breathing drew closer, pressing against the grate as though someone, or something, was trying to push through. I didn't sleep. By dawn, I'd packed and left without looking back. But here's the part that keeps me awake even now. When I got home, I emptied my bag and found a small rusted metal toy wedged between my clothes. A tin soldier, the kind they don't make anymore. Its surface smelled faintly of dust and mildew, like something pulled straight from inside a forgotten vent. The first thing I noticed about room 6B was the stain, a dark patch on the carpet just by the bed, roughly the size of a body curled on its side. At first, I didn't think much of it. Hotels have their quirks: old carpet, wine spills, maybe housekeeping that wasn't as thorough as it should have been. I set my bag on the desk, ran the shower, and tried not to obsess over the odd mark beneath my feet. But when I walked across it, my shoes made a soft, squelching sound. The fabric wasn't just darker there. It was damp. The smell came next. Metallic, sharp, beneath the faint layer of floral air freshener that hung heavy in the room. It reminded me of rusty coins or the inside of a dentist's office. I turned off the shower and crouched beside the patch. My stomach flipped when I saw that the fibers weren't just stained. Something had seeped deep into them, a shadow that looked fresher than the rest of the worn carpet. That night, I lay in bed unable to stop staring at it. I tried reading, watching TV, anything to distract myself, but my eyes always went back to the dark patch. Around midnight, when the wind rattled the window, I swore the stain had grown, stretching an inch closer to the bed. The logical part of me said it was my imagination. The tired mind plays tricks. Still, I turned the lamp back on and spent the next hour just watching. By 1 a.m, the air in the room felt heavy, thick, almost humid. And then, very faintly, I heard something. A slow, wet dripping. It came from the carpet. I slipped out of bed, kneeling close enough that my hair brushed the fibers. The patch glistened faintly, even in the dim light, as if moisture was bubbling up through it. I pressed my hand against the floor, and when I pulled it away, my fingers were slick and red. I stumbled back, heart pounding, shoving my hand under the bathroom faucet. The water ran pink for a few seconds before clearing. When I rushed back to the stain, it looked dry again, completely undisturbed. The next morning, I went to the front desk to complain. I asked flat out what had happened in that room. The clerk froze, exchanged a glance with another staff member, and finally muttered, "We've replaced that carpet 3 times. It always comes back." She refused to say more. I should have left then. Any sane person would have. But part of me wanted to see it again. I wanted to know. My last night in room 6B felt colder, the silence pressing against my ears. I forced myself to stay awake, lamp on, sitting in the chair with my eyes glued to that stain. Around 2 a.m., the carpet began to darken visibly, right before my eyes. The fibers darkened and glistened, the spreading shape unnervingly organic, as though the floor itself were bleeding. The smell grew thicker, copper and rot. Then, I heard it, a groan, low and wet, not from anywhere in the room, but from underneath it. The patch on the carpet convulsed, faintly rising, as if something beneath was pressing up. I staggered back against the wall, shaking. The groaning sound turned to a faint, gasping breath. For a moment I thought I heard words bubbling through it, fragmented, struggling. "Help, please." I ran. I didn't pack, didn't care about the deposit, didn't even stop for my car keys downstairs. I spent the rest of the night in the lobby until sunrise. When I returned to retrieve my bags and check out, I asked one last time about the history of the room. After a long pause, the manager sighed and said, 30 years ago, a guest bled out in there. Nobody found him until days later. We've cleaned, renovated, done everything, but..." He trailed off. "Some things don't leave." That was weeks ago. I still wake some nights convinced I hear dripping in my own apartment. And when I get out of bed to check, I sometimes swear I see the faint outline of a dark patch spreading slowly across the floorboards. The first time I saw him, he wasn't moving, just standing by the mirror in the corner of my hotel room, his reflection clear while the space beside it should have been empty. By the time I turned on the lamp, he was gone. I had checked into the hotel late. After a long road trip left me restless and desperate for sleep. The place itself wasn't new, but it had that false sense of shine. Fresh paint covering cracked walls, a faint smell of cleaning chemicals barely masking something older, mustier. My room was small but tidy, a double bed, beige carpet, and a single standing mirror tucked in the far corner. I unpacked quickly, too tired to dwell on details. But when I turned off the lights that first night, a strange hush fell over the room. Too quiet for a building that large. It was in that silence I noticed movement from the corner of my eye. The mirror caught my attention. A tall man, dressed in a dark suit, standing motionless with his head tilted as though he'd been watching me. My body went rigid. I whipped my head toward the corner expecting someone to be there, but nothing. Just the shadowed space and the faint hum of the air conditioner. Still, the reflection had been so clear, so real, that it left me frozen long after. I told myself I was exhausted, hallucinating, maybe half dreaming. But that explanation crumbled the next night. This time I was fully awake, typing on my laptop with every light in the room turned on. Around midnight, I caught it again. The mirror's surface shimmered faintly, and there he was. Same tall figure, same dark attire, except now his lips were moving. His reflection leaned closer than his body should have been. I couldn't hear what he said at first. I forced myself to listen, pressing against the silence. Then, barely audible, a whisper formed. "Leave." The words slithered through the air like breath against my ear. I snapped shut my laptop and backed against the wall. My heart hammered, but I couldn't look away from the mirror. For several minutes, the figure remained, lips moving slowly, repetitively, eyes fixed on me. Then it blinked, and as suddenly as he appeared, he was gone. The next morning, I stumbled half asleep to the front desk, trying to sound casual. I asked the clerk if any other guest had been reported entering my room. She frowned, typed rapidly, then looked up puzzled. "Room 303?" she asked. I nodded. Her eyes darted nervously to the manager. After a pause, she said quietly, "Sir, no one has stayed in that room for years. We only put guests there when the hotel is at capacity." I laughed weakly, insisting someone was inside with me, but their faces stayed solemn. The manager finally muttered, "You probably saw him. People do. But don't worry, he doesn't leave the room." That night should have been my last. I packed my things early, ready to drive through the night if I had to. But before leaving, I decided to record proof, some part of me needing to confirm I wasn't losing my mind. I set my phone on the desk facing the mirror, hit record, then sat on the bed and waited. For the first hour, nothing. Just my nervous pacing and the hum of the air vent. Then, around 12:17 a.m., the screen flickered. The reflection of the man slid into the frame. He loomed closer, lips moving deliberately. My skin crawled as my ears picked up the same hushed command. "Leave." Trembling, I looked directly at the mirror this time. His reflection stood inches behind me, though in reality, no one occupied that space. His voice grew harsher, louder, until the glass seemed to vibrate. "Leave." I couldn't endure another second. I grabbed my phone and bolted out the door, the reflection still whispering from inside the glass as it slammed shut behind me. The next morning, I played back the recording in daylight, hoping it would expose the trick of my imagination. But the footage showed more than I'd seen. When the figure pressed forward, his mouth stopped saying "leave." Instead, he mouthed new words, slowly and clearly, looking past me toward the lens. "You can't leave." I checked out immediately after. But some nights, when I catch my reflection in a mirror at home, I swear I see the faint outline of a man in a dark suit, tilting his head, watching.